started recording just in case I forget, because I'm really good at that usually. Because I know some people ask me in advance if we would record, so why not?
Good idea. Oh, the numbers are going up dramatically.
All right, shall we get started?
I think so. I think it's 8:00. Yes.
Yeah. 8:00. Thank you, everyone who's here on time, on the dot. And welcome, everyone, to tonight. My name's Kanchi. I'm from Clavard, Melbourne, and I'm co-hosting this together with Esther Malka from Clavard, Ira. Thank you all so much for being here. It's nice to see a lot of familiar faces or familiar names on black boxes. I think we're all going through some difficult times, each in our own ways. It's hard at home. A lot of us either have young kids or are helping to care for young kids, balancing work, managing a household, maintaining our relationship, all while coping with the stress of living through a global pandemic, which is difficult in itself. So we thought we'd gear the night tonight toward people who are caring for young children, which I think is sort of an added difficulty in these times. Not only are we just isolated without our usual support, we know early learning centres like ours are running at very limited capacity, and many of the usual carers or places that we go to for support with our children are unavailable. So not only are we living through this pandemic and coping with everything, but we're also having to educate and care for young children in very difficult and unprecedented circumstances. So we thought tonight would be a night where we can talk about how to cope with those and how to deal with that. And we call the expert Anthony Semman. Anthony is a researcher, speaker, somebody that both of our centres have used often, but most importantly, he's a teacher. And we hope that tonight we can all gain some inspiration from what he has to say and some practical tips on how we can survive the coming weeks. Anthony will also be taking questions through the night. So if you have any questions, you can pop them in the chat, which he will see, or he will also have a bit of question time at the end. So you can pop them there and he might answer them all the way at the end, depending on what happens. So thank you all for being here. We're very excited to hear some things from Anthony, and without further ado, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, and it's absolutely wonderful to be back talking to you all. And what a great turnout. I think 10 points for getting your kids in bed by 8 p.m. I just think that's absolutely wonderful. I will be sharing my screen in a moment because I think there's some nice facts I want to put up on the screen to share with you. But to state the obvious, you know, we're building the boat as we sail down the river. That's the reality of what's going on now for many people. And I know I've been doing a lot of consulting work with government around COVID-19. I tend to spend all my time talking with government around COVID-19 and education and parenting. The thing I really want to impress is everybody's trying their hardest, including parents. You know, parents are so eager to get this right for their children out of an absolute desire and love for their children. And so what I'm going to share with you tonight are some ideas and some tips, stuff around parenting, but stuff around parenting and education and what's happening for children. As was noted earlier on, I've got my little chat box open. If you want to put questions as we go along, please do. I'll cast my eye across because if you're anything like me, you'll have a question. It's a really important question. And when it comes time to ask questions, you'll forget what the question is. So post it in there. I'll answer it either at the end or as we go along as well. So allow me to share my screen with you and I'll just press play and you can all see this, yeah? Great. Okay. So I want to, it was titled Finding Meaning and Humour in Parenting During COVID. Look, when there are moments like this, there's a couple of questions everybody asks themselves, including children school age or in prior to school settings like an early childhood program. And they are things like, am I okay? Are the people I love okay? Is the world I know okay? And will things come back to normal? And they're pretty standard questions during a crisis. The challenge for many of us is we don't know how to answer this. And whilst I don't want to go down a rabbit hole around how to talk to children about this, I do want to say, please ask those questions later on, but trust yourself as a parent. Look, most parents I know feel like they've still got their kind of safety wheels on, their security wheels on and trying to figure it out. But in reality, many parents are doing a fabulous job. Here are some things really just for us to always remember. We are only part of the equation of creating a life. Parenting is a partnership. Parenting is a partnership if you've got another partner. It's a partnership between you and your children. It's a partnership between your community and your children. And it's really timely, but also haunting to remember that children look up to us in order to assess the kind of person they should be. And I will say now, but I'm going to spend some time talking about this a bit later on. Don't expect perfect for yourself right now. You know, there were lots of questions early on in this pandemic around thriving. And I have taken the position, if we are surviving, we're doing well. It is about survival, not about thriving. And I don't mean to sound pessimistic, but what I am trying to be is realistic for you as a parent, or for those of you who are online as educators. We've known for such a long time that parents are the biggest and the most influential teacher of their child. Education happens in many places. Again, to state the obvious, because many of you would know this, that much of the brain develops, around about 80% develops prior to the age of 5. We also know that children take in a whole heap of messages from lots of places, from the home environment, from community, from casual interactions, and from an early childhood program. What we have learned, and we've been trying to do a lot of work on, and it's basically consumed me since March the 12th this year, is what learning from home looks like. And again, no one is looking for a corrective hero. No one is looking for someone who is perfect. Incidental moments of learning and connection are really critical and important to your child. It is so important for us all to find our purpose through parenting. And I've just got some ideas here, but I do invite you to think beyond these points that I have on the screen. You know, purpose gives us focus, purpose gives us energy, and purpose linked to values give us life. When we think about finding purpose in ourselves as parents, it requires us to see our children as a part of us, as who we are. And yes, children are our children, but children are our community members. They are our friends. They are our colleagues. They play many roles in our world. We need to make our children and our partners equal parts, and equal parts in what makes our family. We must always see children as a gift. And that gift does test us from time to time, but it's a gift that lasts a lifetime. And if we see children as children, the lessons will sometimes be hidden for us in a childlike manner. But it's up to us to see through our mature selves what children are trying to say to us. You know, we've known for a very long time that children need a break from their parents and parents need a break from their children, and we all need a break from each other. And now we're all stuck in buildings together for a very long period of time, and we're trying to learn to coexist and exercise all that stuff we know about love and compassion and care. But children like us are being tested by being around us. You know, they're missing their friends. They're missing the smells of the early childhood program. They're missing those places that they like to gather and play. And we might be seeing behaviours right now that perhaps are unfamiliar. Perhaps some behaviours we thought we had dealt with before, and they're just kind of coming back. It's always important for us to look at this human in front of us. And whilst they are maturing, they're not our mature selves. And our children are our mini teachers, and they are our guides. They teach us, number one, how to talk in front of people who are listening, like young children. They teach us how to exercise compassion. They teach us to be fair, and they teach us to espouse all those things that we hold dear as a community, culture, and a group of people. So here are some parenting during COVID ideas. And again, this will differ from family to family and parent to parent, but nonetheless, they are really important. For all of us, we have to remind children that our family is our top priority right now. It is important because during stressful times, we all need a pillar of support. We need people, we need routines, and we need places that remind us of security and comfort. But if children can hear from us right here, right now, that your number one priority is the people you love, including them, it goes a long way to ease their anxieties about this turbulent world. So critical, not just now, but always. Take care of yourself and be the best you can be. It's really difficult to kind of support others when you're feeling depleted. Now, this is not to say you can't feel depleted. We're all feeling depleted. It's a reality. But caring for self is never a selfish act. And parents who feel like they've had some time out, had a good sleep, they've locked themselves in the bathroom for 20 minutes, take a deep breath, perhaps having more baths than usual because they take a bit longer than a shower, will actually lean back into parenting and feel a bit more refreshed. It's always critical, though, for you to also take a break from interacting with your family members if you're not in control of your emotions. See, there are stressful things that hijack us, and when our emotions hijack us, we can go into autopilot. And we might be saying something and our head is saying, don't say this, but our mouth just kind of keeps going. It is perfectly reasonable to say, I need time out as a parent. It's perfectly reasonable to just step away and do whatever you need to do. Can I also suggest this is a time where you sit with your partner and you say, what is our family plan to navigate through these trying times? Whilst we can have short moments of time outdoors, it might also mean having time in your backyard on your own while your partner has your children indoors. It might mean saying, you know, I'm going to be tested right now, but my love for you is unwavering. And you say that, of course, so genuinely to your partner because you mean it in many cases. But I might be acting in a way that is showing my stress, and I'm not going to be the perfect parent right now. It's really intriguing how people are saying to us how stressed they are and how much time they're having with their children. You know, there was a study that's ongoing at the moment, and grandparents are reporting that they're missing their grandchildren. Parents are reporting that they're something like 65% more stressed at home. Parents are saying, look, I know I don't feel safe out in the community, but I know I'm stressed, but I don't want to go out into the community. I want to stay home with my family, even though I know it's causing me some stress. Have plenty of interesting things to do at home. And I'm going to say this, and this might cause controversy and the numbers might drop immediately. I think the people who wrote about how much screen time children should have did not live through the pandemic. If you need to put your TV on and put your child in front of the TV, ignore all the evidence that said they can't be in front of it for more than 32 seconds a day, whatever it says. Right now, your child perhaps being in front of a TV, watching appropriate things. You don't want to bombard them with social media about COVID. Children find it very hard to decipher fact and reaction. But some interesting things could be, we're going to sit as a family and watch a movie or two every weekend. Or actually, I'm going to let my child sit in front of the TV now because it just helps them rest. There are lots of other things, governments have some great things online where parents can go on. A lot of museums are now online. There's a heap of, I think I learned something about the penguins in Port Phillip. Now you can watch them doing what they have to do online. My point here is that if we are in survival, not thriving, some of our parenting rules that we had before, just put them on hold. You can return back to that when we all feel like we're breathing a bit more. Here are some other tips. When your child or your partner or yourself does something that you like, name it up. Celebrate the small stuff. We can't sweat the small stuff and not celebrate the small stuff. Reach out and connect with loved ones, because you don't have to parent on your own right now. Organize moments where siblings and cousins can connect online if you can. Help children to learn to tolerate more uncertainty, because some things that we took for granted are not available to us now. And I'm not sure when they will be, but it's not a moment now to say in 3 weeks we will, in 2 weeks we can. This uncertainty can cause great anxiety. Let's name up the things that we can control, and let's try to let go of the things that we can't control. And I know it's human nature that we find comfort in trying to control things, but right now it takes up all our energy. Make sure your child know that you're there and ready to talk to them, even if you don't know the answer. I was in a studio yesterday for 10 hours filming COVID-19 messaging for the government, a series of videos that are coming out. And, one of the things that we're really impressing on families is to say to children, I don't know the answer. I don't know, but what I do know is I'll do my best to keep you safe. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that I love you. And routines are really important. We know routines, particularly for young children, give them comfort. As best as you can, try to keep a family routine. Sleep time is this time. Breakfast is this time. Of course, you can be playful throughout some of those things and let go of them if you can and if you want to. But particular routines help a family be in sync with a range of issues. And humor has its purpose. It really does right now. There's quite a lot of research actually on parenting and humor, but humor in general. We know that if you can laugh at particular things, it can really relieve your stress and turn a really negative situation into a positive one. And it helps you connect with your child. What it also does, it helps us reignite the childhood in ourselves. And we know that parents can often feel like a very unrewarding job as you try to struggle with behaviors and attitudes. And humor can help to turn the job of parenting into something a bit more enjoyable, a bit more fun, and a bit more energizing. Now, it's a skill we have to learn. And part of this is abandoning your idea of perfect parenting right now. There will be moments where you'll be so tested. And if you can just laugh at those funnies, can I tell you, it'll make a big difference to who you are. Don't sweat the small stuff right now. It's absolutely not worth it. Now, what that looks like will look really different for many families at the moment. But as I said, whilst we have and we hold absolute core values as people, there may be some things right now that we're just going to have to laugh off. We're going to have to just let go of it and say, you know, right now, it doesn't really matter. Here are some things that might help you laugh off and find some humor in your parenting. Learn to forgive. Like, just learn to forgive yourself and learn to forgive your child. Learn to let go of things that might irritate you as a parent, but actually don't have a big impact. They don't. I mean, I get that small things can mean a lot to us, but right now, if something doesn't have a really big impact, you might just want to laugh it off. Exercise understanding. Look, everyone is feeling the pressure, including children. And much of the things which cause us stress will have diminished by the following day. Try to laugh them off if you can. Truly, by the next day, if you can just ignore, for example, I'm very reluctant to give examples because it might really stress people, but, you know, if your child is making funny noises at the table or, you know, irritating their sibling, of course their sibling has the right to feel safe, but if they're saying things that perhaps are slightly irritating you, you might just have to ignore it. Like, just sing yourself a song in your head and try to switch off, because I can guarantee by the following day, you would have forgotten what it was. But you don't want your child to feel stressed by it, because that may not go, and it may not go for you. So my suggestion to you all right now is become the parents we want to be, not the parents we sometimes are. Now, this is not about not being perfect, but remind yourself of the unique roles that you play in your child's life. Think of your role as a parent as a really meaningful act. And just have to ask yourself, what matters right now for us as a family? What are those core things that will see us through? Compassion, tolerance, a bit of joy, doing silly things, you know, rekindle your own memories of your childhood and see this as an opportunity to engage this with your child. Like, many of us will have fond memories of bed sheets over chairs, actually, and hiding places. If we don't have the time now to do this, I don't know when we're ever going to have the time to do things. If we don't have the time to find beautiful rituals with our children, given that we're in build-ins for so long together, I don't know when we will find the time. And ask yourself this, and this is a very big question, but a worthwhile question. How do you want your child to remember you? You know, we are part of history right now. It's strange to even think of this. But in 100 years' time, there'll be photos of Melbourne city streets empty, photos of us with masks on. Stories will be told, stories of children missing school for a year. Like, we are history, and they'll look back at us in our strange old clothing, probably in 100 years' time. But it's worthwhile asking yourself, what do I want my child to say about how we coped as a family? And forgive yourself. Forgive yourself when you slip up, but also extend that forgiveness to your child when they slip up. Truly, the level of intolerance towards each other is so high that I just think if a family can get through a day and sit at a dinner table and eat, and everyone goes to bed breathing, 10 points to everyone. And we wake up in the morning with a good sleep and we just repeat. I am the eternal optimist. I don't know how it happened, but I am. But I remember when COVID hit, I remember saying to my business partner at the time, this will be finished in 5 days. It'll be over. Let's just put a 5 days annual leave. And what is it now? I haven't been in my office since March and we're still going. And, you know, every person is making mistakes as we go along. We're going to slip up, but we're going to learn to realize that collective suffering is so much easier to tolerate than individual suffering. See, here, you can't be perfect at parenting, but we can, of course, find opportunities here to improve what we do and how we do it. So spend some time, talk to your partner, talk to your family. How do we bounce back from this adversity? At the cost of sounding hideous, perfect parenting, just give it up right now. Like, surrender into what you've got. Because perfect parenting usually stems from the fact that we want perfect children. But what does that even mean? Like, I don't know what that means right now. I've been thinking about the gifts of COVID because it does help us move forward in life. And I've been thinking about the gift of slowness, the gift of learning to be together. You know, we live in a fast-paced world. We have fast food, speed reading, speed dating. I even was listening to the radio the other day and people listen to their audiobooks and they put it on speed 1.5 so they get through it even quicker. And I'm thinking, what kind of world do we live in where we can't learn to just slow down? And maybe this is a time for us to reimagine what perfect parenting means and perhaps come to some discussion about what perfect coexistence looks like. You know, let go of if only I had, if only I did. This is not going to help any of us right now. Because sometimes what tends to happen is we can hold our children to impossible standards. We compare them to the idealized world behavior, hardworking youngsters that sometimes just actually exist in our imaginations that don't actually exist in the world we live in. My advice to you right now is exchange perfect parent for good enough parent. Try your best. That's all people can ask. If I do good enough and I'm trying my best, then perhaps this will go a long way in allowing us to navigate some of these challenges. Now, parenting does not require perfection. What it does require is openness, the ability to listen and having really good intentions. And all these qualities are all the qualities that parents can develop. We can all learn to really listen to what's happening around us. And it's not just listening to children, but it's listening to what's happening to yourself. You know, I've been saying since March, it's okay not to be okay right now. It's okay to be in survival mode right now, because we're still trying to figure out what it means to work and live in this particular way. You know, I was talking to some people in government this afternoon who are ever so eager to go back to work. But this government department said, we probably won't go back until there's a vaccine. And I'm like, when will that be? And they're like, we don't know. Like, we could be working from home for a couple of years. And I really was thinking to myself about pressure for some of those people with children in their home. Because not only are you trying to care for children, you're trying to do your work in many cases. And for some of us, we're trying to do education of older children at home at the same time. So there's some triple roles there. So it's worth asking the what next. I just want to reassure you that education happens in really different ways, yeah? Because for many families, there's a huge and growing concern about the big chunk of time that children have missed from an early childhood program or that they've missed from school. We know that learning happens in really interesting ways. There is this long-held belief, right or wrong, that if I teach, someone will learn. Kind of, if you're a good teacher. But can I reassure you, you also learn when someone's not teaching you. You could be sitting there as a child and learning by just watching your parent do something. Incidental learning happens all the time. And this is by no means to diminish the importance of formal education, but is about saying to every parent out there, let's just breathe through this. The normal we knew does not exist right now. It really doesn't. And, you know, early childhood programs and schools, they are aware of what's going on for you as families. And we are doing as best we can to prepare as children come back into the education system. Services are doing a lot of work on trying to reach out with families. And one of the consistent messages we keep saying to people is just try your best. That's all we can ask. So the systems are changing, and they're changing to accommodate the absence of children from those educational settings. Some other things that you could do, and they may seem so simple, but they have such a huge impact, is read to your child. I know it sounds so ludicrous, but just reading to children is such a gift. See everyday moments as an opportunity to learn. You don't have to go out there and be intentional and say, I'm going to sit my child down and do worksheets with them. That's not to diminish if you do that. But there are everyday moments that are great opportunities to learn. What a wonderful opportunity to involve your child in cooking. And yes, the floor may get dirty. And yes, we have a vacuum. We can clean that up later. You might want to laugh that off for a bit, hey? But you can use numeracy. We want 2 cups of flour. Tell me when it boils. Like, these everyday moments are just so luscious for children that they truly are, in many cases, what we do in education settings. Keep learning playful and joyful. You know, it was the great educational philosopher Loris Malaguzzi who said, when it comes to learning, nothing without joy. Now, Malaguzzi was being idealistic. I absolutely understand that that's not the way the world is always going to operate. But if learning can be playful and joyful, there'll be some really interesting things that can happen. I was reading an article the other day that absolutely made my heart sing. It was of an adult who was reading a storybook to children. And it was one of those books that many of us know. And and she was reading it to a group of children under the age of 2. You know, what sound does the sheep make? And she made the sheep noise. What sound does the cow make? And she made the cow noise. And she went through this book and she thought she'd add her own little twist to it. And she said to the children, and what noise do the snails make? And as soon as she said that, she came to the conclusion that she didn't know what sound to make. Like, she was stuck herself. And she invited the children to go hunting for the laughs of snails. And she said for weeks she would go outside and the children have their heads on the grass trying to listen to the snails laughing. And I thought, What an absolutely joyful moment that exists. You know, allow this moment that we're going through right now for us all to fall into the landscape, the intellectual landscape of young children. Maintain a balanced view and don't place undue pressure on your child or undue pressure on yourself right now. It's absolutely not necessary. As I said, collective grieving like this means your child and your family are not the only one who are going through this. The whole system is trying to figure out how we go through this. Every parent is trying to figure out what it means to remain patient right now, what it means to work and live and parent in the same space. And my final point to you here, which is so critical, talk to the staff, reach out to them. Reach out to them about what they can do, how they can help you, what that can be done to support your child's learning. I know that there is, again, a lot of work happening, and the Victorian Department's website, Department of Education, the FUSE site, spelled F-U-S-E, has heaps of activities there for families to do with their children. But remember, and this is so critical, no one is expecting anybody to do 8 hours of education at home with their child. Like, we've just got to let go of that one, because many people are going, oh, I've got to fill my whole child's day with learning. Absolutely not. But many people in education are there armed and ready to go to say, how can we help you? What can we do for you and your child to support you right now? They are as eager to have your child back into the program as you are perhaps eager to send your child back to that program. But you know, physical distancing need not mean social distancing. This world of technology like this, like who would have thought that this is the new normal? I was saying to the staff earlier on, I'm on Zoom for about, 9 hours a day. I was laughing the other day. I used to fly to Melbourne for a 1 hour meeting with government. And I just said to him the other day, that's never going to happen. I've discovered Zoom. You can just talk to me in this way. There are gifts that are coming about because of what's happening. We just need to search for this. So before we have some time for some questions, I'll just stop sharing this for a moment. I just want to reassure everybody right now that it is really hard sometimes to see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's so dim. It is so dim. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel for many of us, including parents. You know, I'm sure that if we spoke to perhaps grandparents, they will share some advice about some of the hardship that they've been through. And, we never compare wounds because it's never helpful. But our elders might be able to share with us some advice that might be really useful right now, like don't sweat the small stuff. Absolutely don't. Remain optimistic as a parent. Your children need it. And one of the most important currencies we have right now is hope. Without hope, what are we left with? Without hope, how do we keep operating as a community and as parents? Whilst hope may be hard to tap into, sometimes you just need a little glimmer of hope somewhere to see us through to the next step. So I'm going to pause for a moment and invite some questions or comments. We have over 100 people, so I have no doubt that there is a question there. Now, Esther, they'll have to unmute themselves. Is that correct, to ask a question?
Well, the best thing is to actually type in the chat. I've got one question, so that would be the best. Otherwise, if people start unmuting themselves, we hear all sorts of noises in the back. So if you can type in the chat your question. I've got one question for you, Anthony, that somebody asked, a message to me privately, that your advice has been very partner-centered. What advice would you give to someone, advice for single parent with no physical support during COVID?
That's a really interesting one, and absolutely, I've been caught out on my bias actually, which is I'm pleased that that's been raised. Look, the reality is that for many families, there is no other partner there. But, you know, again, this is where you just try the best you can, you know. You try to find opportunities to see your child as part of this dynamic. You know, often we have really high standards for ourselves as parents. And that's not a bad thing. High standards are absolutely critical for us. But right now, I think if you're flying solo, you can't be everything to everybody. You absolutely can't. And if this gives anybody comfort, you know, I think if you just try the best you can, I'm not sure, particularly with the lockdown, it's really hard to get support. But what I would suggest is once the lockdown is over, invite people into your life quick, smart. You know, as soon as you can have someone offer you support, give you time out, seek time out. As soon as you can have someone come into your home and give you some respite, I would be calling on that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Another question that came to me, if people can adjust to say that it can go on the chat in general, if they want, what's your advice, re our kids becoming computer addicts during this time?
When the children are?
Yeah, what's your advice? Do you think our kids are becoming computer addicts during this time?
You know, I take a pretty strong line on this, and here's my one. Parents, and I don't want this to sound harsh, parents have to parent. I mean, this sounds really horrible. Like someone once said to me, I'm my child's best friend. And I said, I doubt they think that. I mean, there is a point where you as a parent will have to say, you know what, we're past COVID, computers off, like laptop away. Whilst they may be becoming accustomed to it, there is a point where you will draw a line in the sand and actually say, we've been through this. That was a sometimes. And children are very good at adjusting. I actually think children are quicker at adjusting than we are. You know, children don't have as addictive personalities as adults do. And so they will be pretty quick at adjusting back to the normal, which is why I said maintain some of the non-computer connections like reading. You know, teaching children to play card games is a really lovely thing. I care for my mother a couple of days a week. She's quite ill. And I've been doing card games with her. And it's been really lovely. And it's been sparking with me how we've lost some very simple things like learning how to play cards with children like Snap, which is her favorite game at the moment. So I think, you know, we can use computers to decompress from the world, to give people time out, but there are other things you can do. Now, someone has sent me a private message here, if I may, Esther. It was any advice for step parents or children who go between two homes. My advice there is when those situations happen, it's absolutely critical, and you would know this, that we communicate with each other across those homes around how we're approaching this, how we can create some consistency. No one should be looking at duplicating parents across two homes. Parents parent differently, and that's a reality. And children are so agile that they can figure out they can have this here and they can have that there. What children need to know when there is co-parenting across two homes is that both parties love them and both parties are working together to accommodate and deal with any issues that are affecting the child. So if something is taking place or a child is stressed in one home, children need to hear, you know, me and daddy are talking about this. Me and mummy are trying to figure this out for you. Someone has written me a question as well, Esther. Do you mind if I answer these private questions coming through?
Yeah, sure. And then I have a private question as well, for sure.
You want to go first? You go first and I'll do mine next.
Okay. What about kids that are missing out on so much of these integral development years? Will they be kinder school ready? Like, is this going to be a long-term effect for them?
Yep. There's a lot of concern in government around this, to be honest. And the reality is nobody knows. Like, nobody knows. But the reality is a whole heap of children across all years have missed out education. There is no talk of repeating children. The reality is the system cannot deal with a whole cohort of children being repeated as a whole heap go up. The infrastructure is not there.
I've been threatening my child that for the whole past 2 months. Now you're telling me I can't do it? I've got one child that's doing more homing than schooling. All right, fine. I'll change my gears.
But could you imagine every child in the first year of school stays behind, and then you've got a cohort that go? The infrastructure is not there. This is why schools are acutely aware and reimagining what curriculum looks like for children who have missed a year. So they will be moving up. And, you know, there's a lot of work being done to reassure families that their child is not the only one. And therefore, when they move into the next year, there will be some accommodation made. Someone has asked the best way to explain the current situation to a 3-year-old who is really struggling with not being able to do the simple things like go to parks or visit friends. I love that question. What we have to realize is that COVID is a very complex phenomenon. Like, we don't get it yet. Like, we still haven't figured it out. And so what we need to do is try to reduce that complexity in a way that children might understand. Now, even the word germs and disease is hard for children to understand because we're naming something up that we can't see. That's the reality. But let me tell you something. Children are used to washing their hands. They do it in early childhood programs on a very regular basis. And whilst we may not have used the word COVID, they may be used to that word germs. But again, it's a very abstract idea because they can't see. And I just watched an ad on TV now where COVID is this bright pink thing on things that you touch. And I thought, well, that's going to be interesting for children because they'll be looking for the bright pink thing on tables and chairs and cups. What we can say to them is something like, you know, we can get sick if our hands aren't cleaned because there are some germs that go around and, you know, sometimes we get a cold and sometimes we can get sick in other ways. And what we need to do is just try to stay safe at the moment because some very intelligent people are doing a lot of work on trying to keep us all safe. What they need to know is that adults are trying to figure this out for them. That adults are trying to keep everybody safe in this world. And if it can be just as simple as, you know, we don't really know what's happening here, but there are some very smart scientists and doctors trying to figure out how we don't get sick around this new germ. And until we do that, we're just going to stay home. And I know you miss the park. I know you miss the park and I know you miss visiting your friends. So that will soon be over. And let's try to figure out what else we can do. I know we can only get short bursts of time outside, but you know, we never knew how much we love the outdoors until now, did we? My local park is so busy and parts of the day like it's never been so busy. So even those small, simple things, when you do have them, cherish them. And if you are outside with your child, be so present. Don't be distracted. Leave your phone at home so you can make the most of that time with your child. Yeah. Esther, do you have another question?
Yeah, Anthony, I've been asked a question. Do you find that many parents are on different pages only because they're not used to having so many hours at home and having so many hours of parenting? What would you say, like, if different expectations of one parent wanting to do everything for their child, including cooking 3 times a meal for 3 meals a day for them, and getting up every minute, they almost become their child's servant. They're not used to that. Their child is never at home. And the partner saying, well, you don't have to do that. And they're kind of like, they don't know how to do this together because they're not ever full-time parents or full-time at home with their parents.
Yeah. I'm going to give two contradictory answers here, which is never helpful, but welcome to the world. My first question is, don't start something you don't want to keep doing. It's a really basic thing in life, because sometimes we can start particular habits around parenting in these moments that actually later on we might regret. So just be conscious of that. The other thing is, one parent right now might be accommodating the fact that they don't spend a lot of time with their child and absolutely want to shower them with love and care and cherish this moment. And I absolutely love that. Like, I love that people love their children. My very simple answer, and I know it's not going to work for everybody, is just be as forgiving to your partner as you are to your children. And if one wants to shower them with absolute love and wants to serve them breakfast in bed, may that be something that is long lasting in your own life, and they might serve you breakfast in bed. But just allow them to do it right now. Like, everyone is trying their best, absolutely. And that can be a way of showing your child that you love them and you're trying to give them security. Because for some people, that togetherness, that coming close to your child, that absolutely surrendering yourself to your child is a way of saying to them right now, I'm here for you. However, we need to keep talking to each other. The real issue in life is when we need to talk as parents, we stop talking. You can't just talk to each other when the things are happening that are great. And when there are tensions and struggles, we stop talking. You know, there's that famous saying by Stephen Covey: listen to understand before you listen to respond. And right now, when your partner is talking to you, just try to listen to understand where they're coming from. Okay, because they may also be experiencing stress. The amount of people who've had hours cut, job losses is so stressful, and it ruins the fabric of a society. And so don't expect your partner to be perfect either. It's a time of absolute forgiveness and understanding. Yeah.
Often partners are running away from home because they don't know what this has been unprecedented before. They're not used to being at home for so many hours, and therefore they choose to exercise more than they should perhaps, or go for coffee more than they should. They're just escaping reality.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
they're just scared of this home life that they're not used to, and they don't know how to deal with it, which is also a big issue now. I've got another question,
Yeah.
Anthony. Any thoughts on 8-year-olds playing Roblox games online and with a broader community, cyberspace, safety, Zoom play days? I want to say no, but then fear it's cutting him off from his friends' social network.
Number one, when your child is engaging in that kind of world, they have to be in your absolute view. So you sit them at the dining table. They're not in their bedroom doing it. They're doing it at the dining table where you can walk past and have a look, because you need to be attuned to what your child's engaging in, okay? So your child going into their bedroom and entering these social worlds are very different to learning from home, okay? They're 8-year-olds and they're curious, and you can probably remember what you were doing when you were 8, you know? Nothing terrible, but, you know, we were hiding things from our families. The world is open to children online. So would I stop them? No. Would I want to be involved? Absolutely. I would want to be walking past and seeing what's on that screen. And that would be part of my agreement with that child. I would be absolutely overt about it and say, here's the agreement we're going to strike. I'm a little bit worried about this, but my worry doesn't mean you're going to do something bad. So it's a win-win. Go for it. Let's limit it to, you know, whatever it is, half an hour or an hour. And I'm going to walk by, not that I don't trust you, but I can't trust other people necessarily the way I trust you because I don't know them. It doesn't mean they're bad. So I will walk by and have a look. And that's part of the agreement. Yeah. Now, someone has asked me a question here. Thanks for the talk. How would you help a young child who's 3 understand the pressure and tension between partners and the new changes at home, like parents working from home in a new way, especially when noticing behavioural changes, like they're acting out, they want more attention and they're clingy? Any tips for addressing this behaviour? You know, there's always something behind the behavior. It's this old saying, we've got to look behind it. So if a child is clingy, what they're saying to you is, I need you. I need reassurance. I need to know that you're here and this is all very strange for me. Why aren't you going to work? Why aren't I going to daycare? Clinginess means they want you and they need you. Alice Gopnik, the famous author, said, particularly young children, they are tourists in an unknown world. And this world is unknown to all of us. The other thing is, if children are acting out, we always have to have boundaries. Don't accept the unacceptable. Like, we won't allow children to lash out or be rude. We won't allow them to trash their rooms. Like, you still need healthy boundaries, understanding the complexities of what we have. But, you know, children do understand rules. And my number one advice to anyone, or two pieces of advice: natural consequences for inconsiderate behavior. So what I mean by that is, if your child does something that's inappropriate, what's a natural consequence? So if they throw their food, you can't play outside is not the natural consequence. If you throw your food on the floor, the natural consequence is you're going to be hungry. If you throw your toys, the natural consequence is you can't have that toy. It's just like the natural consequence. If you don't put your hat on, you can't go outside. I think as partners or as a parent, you need to be very clear with your child about what the natural consequence of that behavior is, because that then allows your child to actually make some assessment about whether I should do this or not. And that's why that consistency is important. Here's the other thing, is often when it comes to these challenging behaviors, we tend to respond to the challenging behavior as opposed to teaching pro-social skills. This is a wonderful opportunity to teach a child to be a citizen of the world. Get them involved in setting the table. Get them involved in packing away. Like, we tend to react to the behavior we don't like, yet we forget that actually you have to learn how to behave. And so this is a great opportunity to teach your child how to become the person you want them to be. So when you are seeing behavior that is unwelcomed or antisocial, always ask yourself, what can I do to teach this to my child? Because learning is so critical. Learning how to behave and be pro-social does not just come naturally. It's something we witness and we see in the world around us. So teach your child that skill. Yeah. I think I've answered that one. We probably have time for one more if there is another question from anyone.
Anybody else has any other questions? You've covered a lot of ground, Anthony.
Yeah, my questions are coming flying through here.
Well, I think, you know, what you said about surviving and not thriving is the absolute theme, because I think a lot of parents are barely surviving on a lot of levels, whether it's financially, emotionally, mentally, and then they have to take on a whole new role of being a teacher as well. And while they're financially or on any other level stressed, it's just like, it's unknown, and there are no answers, clear answers, because like we all know, we're kind of like pushing through this together, or together but alone at the same time. And grandparents are not as involved as they used to be. We don't have as much help as we used to have, and little things like picking up children from school, well, school's at home now, but childcare or anything like that is non-existent because, you know, the grandparents are not out and about. So it's tough on everybody. And as long as we forgive ourselves and we're not hard on ourselves, and I think, you know, maybe by now we've forgotten what pre-COVID life is. So maybe we're more forgiving now than we were in the beginning, because that's kind of become our normal. And we should accept that, perhaps. What do you think, Anthony? And just go with the flow.
Agree. Go with the flow. And, you know, the thing that I'm thinking here is Maslow's hierarchy of need. Food, water, shelter, good day. Like, I know it sounds reductionist, but if we just get the necessary things that we need right now, and to also be aware that repairing the soul and the body and the mind will take time after this. We can't expect everyone just to bounce back and engage in some level of cultural amnesia. You know, there's that that famous African American who once wrote that, you know, that there are people who find the truth hard to swallow. But that's the reality. I mean, this is what we've got right now. It's very difficult to swallow the reality, but it will take time for everybody, including children, to crawl back into that rhythm and that routine, which is why I said, you know, having rhythm and routine for your children is so critical right now, because it's one safety net for you. So it will take time. It will take time for families to be restored. It will take time for the economy, for jobs, for children, for those rhythms, for school. That will take time. And I think if we can be realistic, we won't be disappointed. It's not a matter of we're out of stage 4 and then the world's going to be all great. That's not the reality. So be kind to yourself and be kind to your children. But be particularly kind to yourself, because being a healthy parent means you can raise healthy children. If you're empty, you've got nothing to give. You really have nothing to give. And like I said, self-care is never a selfish act. It's a necessary act right now.
Very true. I remember I mean, a few days ago, a parent dropped off a child at childcare, and she was on, I could see she was on empty. She was in tears and she was on empty. And I said to her, just sit in the drop-off area for another half hour. No one will know, and you just take a bit of time for yourself. It's okay. Sit down, take a deep breath, cry, listen to music, be silly, but just take that extra moment to just stop, because as parents, we just don't. And it's really important what you're saying, just be kind to yourself. And we often forget that.
I saw a parent the other day at an early childhood centre, and she was on the brink. She could only leave one child there because the other one had a cold. And she was like, and I was a visitor to this program, and I just turned to her and said, "Are you okay?" And she burst into absolute tears. And I said, you know, you're suffering. You don't have to suffer on your own. You cannot be a corrective hero right now. And oh, thank you. Everyone's putting these lovely thank you messages. Thank you, everyone. You don't have to be a corrective hero right now. And it was like she could breathe, because I think she thought she had to be perfect for her child. And I said, you don't. And I said to the centre manager, maybe you can just go and sit with her outside for a bit. And what happened was, it was her birthday, and her older child forgot it was her birthday. And it was just like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I said, you know, there'll always be another one. Sadly, we'll always get older, many of us. But I said to her, it's okay, because this is so unprecedented. So yeah. It was which one? Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Anthony. You are just, once again, inspiring and incredible. And you just gave us a whole lot of food for thought. And we really appreciate your busy time after sitting 8 hours on Zoom to give us your 9th hour. So thank you very, very much. Really appreciate it.
Take care of yourselves, please, because you absolutely do matter. Thanks, everyone.
And thank you, everyone, for joining. Very much appreciated. Enjoy the rest of your night. There's nowhere to go, so go to bed and take care of yourselves.
Bye-bye.
All the best. Have a good night. Thank you.